everyone. My name is Janie from the Vancouver Startup Week team. I would just like to take a few moments to acknowledge that we are grateful to be virtually gathered on Indigenous land, regardless of where you are joining us from. I am grateful to be on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish peoples. I am privileged to live, work, and play on these lands. First of all, I'd like to thank you for joining VSW 2021 and welcome to the session titled Building a Product. It isn't all about the product, hosted by Velocity Labs. This session is part of the VSW Founders Track and is proudly supported by Sage Accounting. Sage knows that you didn't start a business to become an accountant. Sorry to any accountants out there. Sage Accounting keeps your business organized and running smoothly. Track your cash flow, send out invoices, and get paid quickly. Visit the Sage Accounting booth to access free guides and templates for starting your business finances the right way. Plus, get an exclusive VSW discount if you're ready to switch from Excel. I would also like to thank Velocity Labs for being an event partner and also sponsor. VSW could not happen without your continuous support of all of our community sponsors. So during this session, if any of the attendees have any questions for our speakers, please post them in the Q&A tab in the Whova session. You can also upvote those questions. So for now, I will pass the mic along to Sean and Sheenah. I'm sorry, I'm saying your name wrong. I'll let you two take it away.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Hello.
Snuggle in here.
Everyone. So I am Sean Bowles and I am the product lead at Velocity Labs in Vancouver, which is a product shop that focuses primarily on startups, anywhere in the world. So building and creating products for new startups and new ventures. And I am joined here today by Sheenah Rogers Pfieffer, who will take a second to introduce herself.
Oh, you're gonna make me introduce myself. Okay, no worries. Hi everybody, I'm Sheenah Rogers Pfieffer and I am the founder and CEO of RE Technologies. We're known as RE Life as an app. Do you want to talk about the app at all? Or?
Yeah, sure. Just give a quick introduction to the app
Sure.
and what you do there.
Sure. So RE is a social shopping marketplace that is driven by trusted experiences with the products and the brands that we all personally love as consumers. So we're disrupting the social commerce space and have just really launched our test flight app. So it's been pretty exciting, crazy times, and really excited to tell you guys about my story.
Thank you. So Sheenah and I, we've been working together on RE for about 8 months. I've helped lead through the product design and getting the alpha set up and up and running. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about the parts of what building a company includes, or building a product includes, that has nothing to do with the actual product development part. And so we'll delve deeper into Sheenah's story about how she got into building out a company from the original company that she's built, which is called Anstis, into moving into a tech product, and all of the parts along the journey that I have no visibility into. So I'll be learning as much as you guys as we go through this. But yeah, let's take it away. So the first question that we have is, let's start back at the beginning. You moved from Calgary to Vancouver. You had an idea, and we want to know more about what were those early days like. How did you navigate being in a new city, and then getting into a space with building out RE, which is in the tech space, and building an app and a company that was very different from the one that you built back in Calgary.
Lots in there.
Yeah.
So yes, I did move from Calgary to Vancouver almost 3 years ago, so not that long ago. And for numerous reasons, mostly to do with my husband's career and lifestyle, that sort of thing. And, RE was always this idea that I had that was like burning inside of me for, I guess, like a couple years is when I really started to think about it and start to really kind of deep dive and explore it. And it's one of those things. I had a successful marketing agency. I was doing well. I had no reason to really venture out into something new. But I think this is sort of what all passionate founders, you know, this is why they do it, is that you become so obsessed over this vision that you have. And not only vision, I think for me, it was mostly about, I really did see a huge problem, and we're a marketplace product. So I saw it from both sides because I've had all these years of experience in working with brands and retailers and merchants, and you know, a lot of years as an online shopper, much to my credit card chagrin. But I had firsthand problems, and I was starting to see where the world was going, and I was starting to see that technology wasn't catching up to it, and there was this huge void. And so it was one of those things that just kept me up at night. And so I remember very early on, you know, it was sort of it was a family, I guess you could say, decision where I had to sit down with my family because I also have 3 children. And, you know, I had to really create this space for me to go after it. So I had to like organize my existing company and set it up so that I could step away from it and really bring up the leaders in that organization to kind of cover me. And then I had to like boot camp myself in tech. And the first book I read was Lean Startup by Eric Ries.
Great book.
Yeah, amazing book. And actually I had a friend that worked in San Francisco in tech, and he was one of my great friends, and he was in between jobs at the time. And he graciously, after hearing me agonize about RE for months on like, how do I do this? How do I go about this? He like moved into my basement in Vancouver and lived with me, and literally we worked 24 hours a day on him, like basically boot camping me on everything from learning what a CPO is through to what, you know, a Trello board is, and quizzing me on Lean Startup. So it was I'm so thankful for that time because it really gave me an opportunity to build some confidence. But yeah, it's definitely challenging moving into a new market, into a new space, into new. But I've always been a pretty fearless entrepreneur. It's kind of, I think, what you have to be to do these things. So yeah, I just started to kind of surround myself with people who I thought knew what they were doing, like yourself, and yeah, learn along the way.
That sounds great. And I know you had said that you actually went to Vancouver Startup Week back in 2018 or 19.
It was right before COVID, so whatever that was.
I guess that would have been the 2019 version.
Yeah.
And that was kind of your first introduction to the startup culture and I guess area within Vancouver, and seeing what running a startup was all about.
Yeah, I actually went with the advice of one of my advisors, and he just said, like, go start networking, meet some people in the city. And I remember showing up to Vancouver Startup Week when we could actually physically meet, and I did meet some wonderful people, I have to say. And I was really impressed with how, you know, forward people were, and how everybody just really wanted to get to know one another. And I actually forged some great relationships at the time that opened up doors to a lot of talent and resources that I don't think I ever would have been able to get if I hadn't built those relationships. So it was very valuable for me.
It'll be, I mean, the virtual way of doing this is the way that we have to do it right now, but it'll be amazing to eventually get back into doing these types of events in person and doing the networking side. So, you know,
that's so important.
I think 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's delve a little bit deeper into your experiences around starting a new venture that is so different from your first one with Ansteeds. What has that been like to you, forging a path for RE, not only completely in a new industry that you're not familiar with, but also building a technology company in contrast to a services company?
Yeah, I mean, a service company, I was starting just to see, like, it was a never ending treadmill. And, you know, I've owned my agency for 13 years, and it's one of these businesses that, like, as a service provider, you're kind of at the mercy of your clients, right? And it's up to, they're the ones holding the budget purse strings. They're the ones that you can give them all the insight and research and, you know, everything that they want, and it's still up to them to decide what they want to do with it. And so as someone that was working in an industry and marketing that, you know, I was starting to really see, you know, all of these trends and changes and shifts happen. and you're stuck having clients that are still living in the past or afraid to transition, it just sort of became one of those things like where it was like, I've had enough, right? And I want to build a product, and I don't want to be on this treadmill and be completely, I guess you could say, at the mercy of my own clients. So that was actually a huge motivator for me, is that I wanted to build something to put into the world that reflected all of the problems that my clients were not going to solve. And I kept trying to get them to solve, but they wouldn't. So that was a huge part of it, but it's a very different business. I mean, it's been literally learning from it's been like learning from the ground floor. I mean, there's transferable skills that I think you bring over as a business owner. Like, I'm very thankful. And, you know, I would say it's a differentiator that I do have, is that I've grown a business from zero to multi-million-dollar revenues. I've hired, I've fired, I've, you know, scaled, I've done all these things in the service sector. But when you move over to technology in a sector that you have no experience in, I think that's where I had to really lean into, is I had to lean into my previous experiences. That was how I built my confidence, is saying, you know what, I might not be a technical expert. I may not, you know the intricacies of a product, but I know my users, and I know my market, I know my people, I know the business, I have the business acumen to do this. And that's like literally something I have to chant in my head all the time when I am feeling intimidated or feeling like, you know, I'm an imposter, which I have that syndrome daily.
I think we all deal with imposter syndrome. And on the services side, I mean, working in an agency, you know, you are part innovator, part hamster, just currently running on the wheel, part therapist and part educator. And I think, you know, moving into your own business, where you're not acting as a service provider, you are able to focus on that hamster and the innovator part, and leave the educator and therapist part behind. Which is, I guess, a little easier in some cases.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to be in control. I say that loosely, but in control of your progress, right? But you know, that in itself comes with its own pains, right? So.
All right, fantastic. We are trucking along. So let's jump a little bit more into an aspect of building a company, which is very important, but also probably one of the biggest black boxes for most new venture, you know, starters or entrepreneurs, and that is raising money. So for you, I mean, for every business, it's a challenge, but for somebody who already has you know, a network and whatnot, it could be a little bit easier, but then you also have other things that can make it more challenging. So I want to talk a little bit about, you know, how raising money for you has been and what your experiences have been, given, you know, you're in a location like Canada, you are a woman in technology, which is, you know, generally money and venture capitalists is usually a boys club, and technology is usually seen as this kind of boys club or younger men's club. So what has it been like for you as a female tech founder raising money for a new venture?
Oh, how much time does everybody have? This is a big one. No, it's been very cathartic, I'd say. I think there's sort of this naivety to raising money when you're, you know, in your 20s, early 30s, and you have this idea and these rose-colored glasses. And when I started my agency business, that was me, and I had like no fear, and I would go pitch, you know, these huge companies all over the world, and like I never let anything get in my way. And then you get older, you go through some, you know, harsh, you know, ups and downs, and you know, you become educated, right? But you also become sometimes trepidatious. And so I think for me, I had to, and I have been trying to kind of retrain myself to go back to that girl that I was, that had no fear, that could, you know, put herself out there, ask anybody for anything, and you know, not have to worry about all of the other sort of things that might be tied to it, or experiences that you've had. So I've been really trying to be that. It's been a lot of work, like not only trying to figure out the lingo that investors want you to use, and how to build the right deck, right? You could be the expert at anything, but telling your own story is sometimes the hardest part, and your why is the hardest part. But I would have to say that I've been very lucky in the sense that I've been able to unlock funding from a network of people that believed in me and knew what I was capable of from my previous life. So they have watched me build this other company. Most of my early investors were people that were like, of course, Sheenah, I'll invest in your next venture because we know what you're capable of and what's possible here. As I'm now moving into sort of larger investment asks and the product's becoming further along, now it's sort of less about that and more about, what is the business? What is the product market fit? Who am I? Which is still equally important, but I don't have a lot of those relationships. So, learning to, I think, put your hand out and put your neck out and just ask, I think is maybe the first thing that I wish someone would have told me very early on, is like, don't overthink it, just ask, because you never know where it's going to come from. And one thing that I am surprised by in this whole thing is that the money that I have received has come from the people that I least likely thought it was going to come from. And the people that I thought for sure were going to double down on me and bet on me didn't. So it's like, it's so subjective, and you don't really know who's going to be behind you and for what reasons. And, I was on a call this morning with my advisor who said, we're talking about one, VC firm, and he was talking about how they like you or they don't. That's just sort of how they make a decision. And then, you go into another VC who is, making their mind up on very different criteria. And maybe they've got sort of a quota they need to meet based on if am I female, am I a single founder, what vertical am I in? So I think, long story short, we as founders, at least this is from my experience, you just never know, right? And you do the most homework you can, you network your butt off, you try to find connections through people as much as you can, and hope that you find the right fit. It's like dating. It's literally like dating. It's like being on the dating scene again and trying to find your husband and hope they propose to get down on one knee. So it's very much like that. And then you kind of couple that with Canada, which again is a new thing that I learned. Canada is a very challenging place to raise early funds. And, I'm very interested in other people's stories here, but I also have a great circle of other founders around me, and it is tough. We just have a cultural, I think, differentiator around, we're not as risky, we're way more conservative. Therefore, our decision-making and how we invest in startups, I think, is very, very much more risk averse. Versus if you go to San Francisco or go to the US, it's very much more of a cowboy culture, right? Risk and gambling is sort of embedded in the US culture. And that's why it's so easy to get a check written, which is also why that country and why Silicon Valley is, in my opinion, so successful, is because they are willing to kind of put themselves out there and take that risk. I do wish that Canada was, a little bit more in the other direction, because for us founders, I'm personally having to be forced to look at the US now, and I'd rather raise my capital in Canada. I'm a proud Canadian. I want to be Canadian, but I'm having to go US because that's where the money in my vertical is, and frankly, where I think I can unlock it the fastest.
Yeah, and I mean, you do take a risk yourself of kind of giving something away the moment that you move down into San Francisco or Silicon Valley with their VCs and what they're looking for, where it can change some of your plans as a business before you're necessarily ready to make those changes, or change some of your focus. So I can understand entirely why you want to be more focused on the Canadian VC money if it's there, but also, yeah, I mean, we need to be able to move quickly, and VCs here sometimes don't move it as quickly as business does.
Yeah, and I mean, you're asking, a lot of them ask for information that you just don't have yet, right? And I'd love to be able to give someone a pro forma, but can't really do that yet. So there's, it's finding, and again, that's why I attribute it to dating, because it's really there's a values piece to it. So like, are you aligned as, you know, people? Are these people that you want involved in your baby? Like, this is your baby, your business. Like, this is something you're going to be in for hopefully a long time, right? Like for me, I want to take Ari all the way to IPO. So like, there's no like short term plan here. But I think that, but yeah, it's very much like, are they the right fit, both from like a founder standpoint and a VC standpoint? And one thing that my advisor's been pushing me to do is, you know, interview the investor as well, right? Like, what are their intentions? How involved do they want to be? Like, what is it about your product or your business that they're gravitated towards versus like the growth potential, right? And the, you know, the big B potential. So, you know, it's as much as interviewing them, I think, as them interviewing you. And I think once you can wrap your head around that, at least for me, it's been really helpful because it makes it less intimidating, right?
Yeah, and I mean, history is littered with examples of people who have taken money from a VC or an investor that was a poor fit, and I mean, it's hard to pinpoint all of those businesses because a lot of them are failures.
Yeah, yeah, and you don't see those. Like, that's the other thing. There's no place. Oh, here's an idea for someone. There's no place to actually like see the failed ventures, and like I know a handful of them too. And the stories are lost, and the experiences are lost. And I think that would be something very valuable.
Yeah.
So maybe someone out there wants to start that platform. I'll sign up.
Let's talk a little bit more about maybe some of those fears that you might have about, you know, how you go about raising and finding an investor that is a good fit for Ari and for you and the type of you know, founder that you are.
So what's my criteria specifically?
Yeah.
I think I'm looking for, I mean, values is so important. Like, Ari is a mission-driven, purpose-driven platform, and therefore I want to surround myself with people, not just investors, but employees, a team who are very values-driven to begin with. So for me, that's really important, like integrity, curiosity, this ability to sort of be able to roll up your sleeves and have some initiative. And I look for that in an investor. Like, I quite frankly would rather be part of a smaller portfolio who could really lend their talent and their experience and resources to me to help me, because I'm very coachable and I like to learn and I'm constantly learning. It's just, you know, as again, an entrepreneur, that's something that I think you have to naturally desire. So, so yeah, values are extremely important to me. The size is very important to me. I think their own mission and their own vision is very important, and their why, like why they are doing it, what's in it for them, is equally important as it is my why. And hopefully all those stars align, right? And that you have someone that, you know, you can have fun with and you can, you know, be successful with, because that's really ultimately at the end of the day what it's all about.
Yeah. And it's interesting that you say it that way, because one of the first things when we started working on Ari and designing it out for getting, you know, into this alpha that you brought up to me was wanting to have every single user of the platform agree to the community guidelines, that everybody who is here, if you're going farther than this page, you agree to act in this way and respect each other and you know, build a community that is encouraging and safe and so on. And that was very counter to all of the other products I've ever worked with, where their primary focus is to tell you about the products and then get you in the app and signed up as quick as humanly possible. And while we do that in a very quick way, once you get past that first page, you know, having those guidelines up front, you know, it's the first thing that you see, bar the logo and the sign in or create your account button. And so I thought that was something that was very telling about how you wanted to build the organization, and that obviously is you know, continuing in how you look for partners to you know, help fund growing Ari and building.
Yeah. I mean, we're all human, and I think we all want to feel heard. We all want to feel safe, especially in today's day and age, where, you know, the social or the trust gap is so huge, and we don't know what is real and what's fake. And, you know, there's all the judgment, the bullying, and like, you know, frankly, that was actually one of the reasons that well, a big reason I started Ari was because I just didn't want to participate in shopping or transacting in this environment that existed today. And it was preventing a lot of people from sharing things because of that environment. So yeah, it's no different that, you know, anybody that comes to work with Ari or, you know, is an investor, like we have to be able to be human with each other, and we have to be able to support one another and feel safe with one another. And, you know, that crosses all sorts of criteria.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to the next one here. So building any successful business is a challenge at any time, and yet you've chosen to really lean into building Ari in the middle of a pandemic. We started working together in October, but you were already months and months into building out this product and this company. So, you know, with also 3 young kids running around the house and a company back in Calgary that you're still running, how, why, how, like, yeah, just reading.
Good reminders, I gotta go.
Just reading that made me tired. So, but yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, the how and the why you would choose to take on this product and this project during probably one of the most difficult times to do it in anybody's life.
Oh, honestly, like COVID could not have been more of a blessing to me. And I say that a bit facetiously, but I mean, it gave me the space to actually work on Ari, right? I all of a sudden didn't have to be on a plane going back and forth. I didn't have to be in client meetings and client lunches. I had all this space to all of a sudden go, okay, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this now because I have the time, I have the energy. I actually thought like starting a startup in COVID turned out to be a very smart strategic move because there was a lot of talent that all of a sudden was freed up as well. So people were they were losing their jobs or they were looking for extra side hustle work. There was a few people even that we brought into the team very early on who were grounded from they were supposed to be going elsewhere and those opportunities dried up. So I actually got to really surround myself with some great people, find some great talent. COVID was also the perfect time from a timing standpoint with our product because the adoption of e-commerce and online shopping, both from a retailer standpoint and a consumer standpoint, was just accelerating overnight. So for us, the opportunity from a market standpoint just like completely came out from under the ground. People were on social more, but they were getting exhausted. So there was sort of this like perfect storm that was happening. But yeah, I think everything in life comes down to timing. I really do. I think that if I didn't have, and not to say I'm thankful for this pandemic in any stretch of the imagination, but I think when it came to me fulfilling this dream and this, I guess, insight that I had, it actually couldn't have worked out better in some respects. But no, my life is busy, and I think boundaries are important, and that's something that I've been trained on. But nothing, I think as an entrepreneur, like when you are passionate about something and when you just intuitively know that this problem is big enough and that if you don't do it, you're going to wake up 15 years later and you're going to see somebody else who's done it and it's going to kill you. I would much rather, fail and know that I did it than I would ever wanting to have that feeling of waking up after my kids have graduated high school and gone, wow, I could have done that. And I didn't because I was too afraid that I wasn't going to make the bedtime routine or something. So it's just sacrifices and priorities and trying to juggle all that, I guess.
And balance and
balance is a tough one. I don't really ever believe in balance. I believe in flow. And flow is in like, you're never going to, because for me, balance feels like very stagnant. Like I'm like 50% here or there. Whereas flow, I think is, I think it's more reflective of like the state that you're in at any given time. So there's some times where I feel like I need to be I need to be around more as a mother. And it's just like this internal calling where it's like, you know, I want to be with my kids. And there's times where I feel like, no, I need to be putting in the extra hours at work right now, and I need to put my head down here. And so I just tend to go with what I think feels right in the moment, because it usually is. And when you try to kind of, I guess, from my experience, go against the current, it's usually where you get yourself into the imbalance, or the triggers start going off.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. And I mean, you know, on the balance side, I'm probably the last person to talk about balance, because I work way more than I do anything else. But then I also see, you know, those times where we've taken meetings to talk about RE, and you are, you know, at your kids' like skating practice or things like that. So I get how you make it work if you need to, but it still seems like a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you just gotta, I mean, I'm thankful I have a lot of help and support in my life, for sure. So I'm not just like, my kids aren't sitting there alone in the house, don't worry. Nobody calls social services. But yeah, it's, I mean, you just gotta do what you have to do, especially at this stage. Like, there's a lot to do, and I'm excited though too. Like, it's not like it's work for me. When I get to work on RE, it's my love.
Well, that's good. I mean, you gotta love what you do. So the last question that I wanted to get into was, so when we spoke earlier, you talked a little bit about you know, being an entrepreneur being like a cliff jumper, right? It's not for the faint of heart. So every day you wake up and you choose to jump off another cliff. How do you manage that anxiety that can hold so many people back from taking the leap? You know, whether that leap is reducing their work, or quitting their job to focus on this entirely, or the leap could be something as simple as telling somebody about your idea and being open to getting that feedback. So how do you manage that anxiety and whatnot? Because I'm sure every single day there is something to agonize over when it comes to building out a phone.
Oh yeah, that's like endless pressure and anxiety for sure, and questioning yourself. But I think someone told me this once, where I read it somewhere, where when you are in this, I think, position of decision making or anxiety, it's, you know, well, there's two things, I guess I should say. One thing I've learned as a mental exercise is to focus on, like, can I influence it? Can I control it? And if I can't, I have to let it go. And so I sort of think about it in this paradigm when I think about certain problems. It's like, okay, can I influence it? Can I control it? And if I can't do any of those things, then I try to just walk away from it and let it happen. If I can control it, then I try to do what I need to do in the moment. But I try to follow that from like a stress management standpoint. And then I guess, you know, as it relates to like sticking your neck out and doing things and jumping off cliffs, I think, you know, I think I read this somewhere where it was about, I guess, say weighing the level of regret that you'll have, right? And it's actually, I think, a pretty profound mental practice that a lot of successful people use, which is, if I don't, like, what is the cost to me? What is the cost and benefit to me not doing something versus doing something? So, you know, what's the worst that can happen, or what's it worth to me on the other end if I pick up the phone and call this person and ask them for money? Well, okay, the reward piece is huge if they do say yes, or they do introduce me to someone else. The risk is that they say no, and, you know, that's okay too. So I think to look at those decisions within that, you know, parameter of like, is it going to kill me? Is it going to put me in harm's way? Is it going to put my family in harm's way? Is it going to put my business and my venture in harm's way? Then yeah, those are things that it's not worth doing, right? Or are you going to hurt someone, right? Like, those are the easy decisions to go, okay, it's not worth jumping off the cliff. But if it's just a matter of fear and anxiety, I think that it's something that's usually 9 times out of 10 worth just sticking your neck out on.
No, that makes sense to me. And I mean, that's one of the biggest fears that a lot of people have, like, for example, is picking up the phone and talking to somebody, or, you know, their idea is precious to them, and the moment that they verbalize it or put it into the world, it can be, you know, knocked down, or some naysayer or devil's advocate can come in and
people are judgy.
Yeah.
Like, people are mean. People are just like, what is she doing? Like the whispers behind the back, right? So of course that's going to affect people, but it'll be bigger than that.
And I think that kind of water off a duck's back point of view is the way that most entrepreneurs have to be. You know, it's the person who went to Harvard Business School and then is you know, selling popcorn or something at a farmer's market because they have a grander vision for a business that sells snack foods, is completely, but knows that they're going to run into people who they went to school with, and they're going to be judged by what they're doing, and just being okay with that and being like, I don't care, like, judge me. I know what my grander vision is for this. You know, I don't want to be working in a farmer's market for the rest of my life. But if I don't want to be doing that, I have to be doing this right now.
Yeah, and you know, what are those people going to say? Like, they've always worked their 9-to-5 job, and I mean, that's up to anybody, right? But I think when you have the calling and you just, you know that, and you have the validation on the problem, I think that it makes every decision easier. It makes every opportunity for judgment less painful, because, and I mean, this is actually something that's been really interesting in my journey. Like, every week that goes by, I feel like I'm way more clear on our value proposition. I'm more confident in it. Then you get users in, and you get the users telling you how much they love it. And then they're bringing new users in, and you're like, oh my gosh, like, this is actually, you start to see your reality or your dream come to fruition. And even though it's just a tiny little sliver of the dream, that's what keeps you going, right? It's like those little milestones, and celebrating those little milestones with the people that got you there. And I think that's something that, you know, I certainly take for granted a lot of the time, that I need to get better at, is celebrating those small wins and celebrating those things, because it does keep you going. It does, get you, I think, working more fluidly towards the big, hairy, audacious vision.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we have about 20 minutes left, and we've got a couple questions that have come in from the audience, at least some early ones, and so let's go through those. So the first question is, I'm curious, what are some of your challenges you've had to overcome to feel confident in building a product and pivoting towards a product versus a service company?
So challenges I've overcome to build my confidence, that's the question?
In your confidence in building a product versus building the service oriented company.
Yeah, I think that I mean, there's some slightly interesting nuances between service companies and product companies. I think I've always built with the intention of, like, the user first experience and the customer first, and listening to their feedback and what they're telling us, and trying to weigh that with my own intuition and my own experience and knowledge. Because, you know, I think that's what we forget as founders, is like, we started this because we had experience and we saw a problem versus the other side of the coin. So I think that for me, really, I think trying to refocus on that constantly is like, it's almost like a meditative practice of having to go, okay, you don't have now a client who's validating you anymore. You don't have a client that you could go in and say, here's all of the research I did, here's the plan, here's the strategy, you know, pay me to do this and hope that I don't fail, right? There's much more writing on the product build side, and there's much more, I think, like, intuition and I don't know, again, that sort of like intersection of intuition and user product market fit, like user experience, that you really have to pay close attention to. And it's very easy in the product side to get, or to lose your confidence on making decisions, I guess, for that very reason.
Yeah, right? I mean, well, you know, working on both for a long time now.
Yeah, you would know this more than anyone.
There's that side of when you're working with a client that you're managing, you know, maybe 5 or 6 very opinionated people with what they want to put out. And then there's, on the product side, where you have a lot of noise in varying directions but it's, you know, a scale thing. You don't want to make a change because one person sent a very opinionated letter or piece of feedback. If that isn't the right thing for the product or the business or the overall grand scheme of things, and that noise can feel deafening sometimes, because even when it's a small amount of users, when it's coming in that abundance of, you know, of feedback, and especially when you're in an alpha like Ari is right now. And so that's one of the things that I try to counsel you and everybody on the team, is that, you know, we need more information before we start making sweeping changes. And let's be careful of falling into a trap where we're making changes too early and too quickly when we don't know how users are really going to react to this over time.
Which is that's that tug of war, right? That's absolutely true, and I think valid. And then there's like that founder intuition of like, by golly, that feature has to be stood up because I just know it, right? And it's like that struggle is real versus just having the EQ to read your client's room, to read the room and your client and go, okay, well, this guy, he's the CFO, he's not happy, I need to drill it on him and sell him on this. So
and then there's the other part for you that you know, over the last 8 months has obviously been it's your first product build. And so you're learning how, you know, all of the processes that go behind designing and building a product, and you know, especially an app in this case, and all the things that you don't know, and having to get a crash course on doing that at the same time as building out this business, which is a big challenge. Which is
like, I think that goes to at least for me, like going back to the learning part, I read a lot of books. Like all I do is read books, and I'm a biography nut. Like I learn through experiences, which is kind of ironic. I'm building an experience platform. There you go. But no, I can't read like textbooks on information spewing. I need to read through real experiences. And so I've been reading like, you know, the Uber story and the WeWork story, and like really deep diving into like the entire sort of experience of how these things came to be from ground zero to exit, and still, you know, some of them not so great exits, but it's been really interesting. And I think as a founder, in my position at least, this is my first product build, I have to rely very much on again, balancing my own intuition and experience with those around me, and leaning into like the talent and good people, making good choices on the people that I surround myself with, and not having an ego and thinking that I know the way, because I do believe that these things are very collaborative, and that, you know, everybody has a piece of insight that's valuable.
Yeah. 100%. The next question that we had was, with regards to raising money, can you share some of the tactics that you have for finding investors who are relevant and who can contribute strategically to your goals versus, you know, the quote unquote going to Shark Tank or things like
I hate
that.
Sure. For that reason. I shouldn't say that. No, I think it's a good question. I'd say it's just a lot of homework, to be honest. I will find a VC, a name of a VC firm by reading a TechCrunch article, and then I'll go down a rabbit hole of like researching who they are and who they've like who some of the players are on LinkedIn. Then I go through their experience, then I go through their venture background. Like it's a lot of homework. It's like I feel like a recruiter half the time, because I'm just researching people on LinkedIn and Googling them like crazy and just being a total creep. But I think that's like, there's no shortcut to it, unless you, and until I think you start to get the flywheel spinning, so to speak, on, you know, you bring in investors, then they start to introduce you to other investors who then introduce you to other investors. And that's a hard flywheel to get going, because it requires you to have proven something to your existing investors, and then they're not going to stick their neck out for you until, you know, you have proven something to them and you don't even know what that thing is that they want you to prove. So I think you kind of have to go at it in two different ways. Like you got to do your own due diligence, your own homework, like get out the laptop at midnight with a glass of wine and just start making the lists. And then, yeah, using your own network to make introductions, just meet people, like pick up the phone and just ask them what they're all about. And you kind of know within 30 seconds as well, like if there's interest or if they're going to be a fit or not.
And I mean, when you're doing user research, for example, at the end of your interviews, the best practice is to always ask those people who else I should talk to. Do they know anybody else who'd be interested in this product that I can talk to about what I'm doing or what I'm thinking, and get some leads that way. And it's kind of the same way with investors in your network, right? You don't know how big their network is, and
until you ask.
And so, you know, somebody has met with you because they've shown an interest in what it is that you're building. Being able to, they're likely to have people who will share that same interest that they can think of. So that's one way as well, is you know, getting that flywheel going. Is who else do you think I should talk to about this? Or can you put me in contact with some other investors who might be interested that you know, they should learn about this opportunity? And then the other is that there are investors for every flavor of business out there, specifically VC firms that focus on, you know, mental health and health related applications. Or at Velocity, we work with a VC firm that focuses on connected hardware. And so, you know, they're likely, whatever your business is, followed by venture capitalist firm, you're likely going to find a list of a bunch that you can get in contact with.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's, I mean, I hate the cold call approach, I do, but sometimes I think you can get really creative with it too when you do research the person quite a bit. Like I once wrote a handwritten letter to someone just because I thought it would be really cool that they get emails all the time, and like who the heck's going to write someone a handwritten letter?
Yeah.
And you know, I was successful in that approach. Or I send articles, so like things that are related to my vertical that I find are really interesting that I share in our own Slack feed. I'll do like a roundup of stuff because a lot of these VCs want to get educated on the vertical that you're in too, right? That's why they talk to you. So sending through like, you know, articles with like pulled tidbits on like, hey, I thought you might be interested in this. Just sort of a way to like, again, keep yourself top of mind with them versus every time you reach out to them, ask them for something, because it's the relationship that matters, I guess, is what I'm learning.
Yeah. And I mean, also on the Shark Tank comment, the thing that I've learned over the years is that nobody on Shark Tank is a new venture.
No.
They've already either dumped a bunch of money in or have existing investors, or they're already, you know, at revenue of some sort. You know, they have a story that is interesting to Shark Tank, and that's why they're on the show. So definitely don't go that route if you're an early stage entrepreneur.
So I'll ask you what your valuation is if you're done.
Yeah. Okay, that's it that we have for questions, unless there's any more from the audience that I haven't seen. You know, thank you very much, Sheenah, for answering all my questions. Before we go, did you want to take a couple of minutes to talk a little bit about what's next for RE?
Sure. Well, first of all, everybody go to re.life and sign up and join our waitlist to get let into our alpha app. That's number one. Number two, yeah, we're moving pretty fast. We've got users in the app. We're getting feedback every day. We are product roadmapping our beta here. It's pretty exciting. We're moving into the US market. So we're moving to LA and San Francisco from a user acquisition standpoint. We are growing our retailer partnership and acquisition, say funnel. So yeah, things are moving, and I'm learning every day. And I think that's the most exciting part, is like actually, you know, learning every week about something that you might not have ever thought of that could happen in your own app. And you're like, oh, that's so great. Like they want to do this versus that. And you know, that to me is the coolest part of this whole thing. And I just live for those moments. So yeah, tell your friends, get in, send us feedback, and yeah, look forward to doing this again.
Fantastic. And just very quickly on Velocity, So for those of you who are unfamiliar with us, as we are fairly new in the market, we are a product development shop. We primarily work with startups where we will invest part of the fees or take part of the fees as equity. And so, you know, if you have a product that you are looking to build or get design work or product, you know, management, data science, tech leads, whatever it is that you're looking for, reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly, Sean at velocitylabs.dev, or you can just check out our website, velocitylabs.dev, and reach out to us through the site.